down 33% in 2022. Is Pinterest stock a buy for 2023? I'm going to answer that question in this video, so stay tuned. First thing I'm going to look at is Pinterest revenue growth. And we see in 2020, the revenue growth for Pinterest fell as advertisers really were concerned about what the pandemic means for business worldwide. And then it exploded as stimulus checks started going out and businesses realized that, hey, people are staying home and they're spending a lot of money online. So let's go ahead and advertise on Pinterest platform. Revenue grew 120% in one quarter, and it's slowed considerably ever since. And then in 2022, there was a real headwind as Apple made changes to its privacy policy that makes it difficult for Pinterest to sell targeted advertising. And so that was one headwind. And then the Russian invasion of Ukraine caused marketers to pull back spending even more. And then as inflation pinched consumer budgets, there was another cause for businesses of discretionary items caused them to pull back. So Pinterest was hit with several headwinds in 2022, and still it managed to sustain positive revenue growth, 8% in its most recent quarter. It held up better than Meta Platforms did, the giant Meta Platforms. Pinterest held up better than that. 2023, it's likely to experience similar, those headwinds in 2022 are likely to persist in the first half of 2023. So don't expect a quick rebound from Pinterest here. Although the good news is that Pinterest operates in an $800 billion industry, which is the global marketing spending industry, and it's a relatively small player in that industry. It's got a lot of room to grow if it could continue expanding, serving its customers, attracting new customers. So investors can reasonably expect Pinterest to continue growing for several years. Next, let's look at Pinterest operating income, and you saw very good economies in scale and increasing in operating income as revenue soared in the earlier stages of the pandemic. But as revenue started coming down, so did its operating profitability, generating an operating loss in its most recent quarter of 70 million. But it was profitable for several quarters in a row on the operating level, and only recently did it turn negative. 2023 is, they're expecting revenue growth in 2023. They're investing in expanding their global operations, getting more salespeople, setting up sales staff in international segments because that's where they're really behind in monetizing their international users. So it remains to be seen where profitability goes in the near term. However, long term, if it can mirror at least fractionally the level of profits that Meta Platforms has been able to achieve, the profit margins that Meta Platforms has been able to achieve, if Pinterest can even do a fraction of that, it can be an incredibly lucrative business to invest in. The next thing I want to look at is the cash flow from operations, and it's been trending higher. Pinterest cash flow from operations uh, went as high as 200 million and even 77 million. Even as revenue has came down, its cash flow from operations is still positive and trending upward over the long term. Tech companies like Pinterest can sometimes generate positive cash flow from operations, even though they lose money in operating income because they use a lot of stock-based compensation, which has the risk of potentially diluting shareholders if the cash flow is not increasing proportionally higher. So that's something to keep in mind there. All right, finally, let's look at Pinterest valuation, and I'm going to look at its forward PE ratio, trading at a forward PE of 31. And going back, that's about as cheap as it's been. It used to trade at a forward PE over 80 in earlier 2021 when the optimism around this stock was really high. And I feel that at that moment that was justified because that was before Really, Apple's privacy policy changes came into effect before the Federal Reserve really said that they're going to start increasing interest rates meaningfully, and before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so Pinterest was growing. You saw 120% in one quarter. It was scaling its operating profit. Cash flow was scaling higher. It was growing monthly active users. It was operating in an $800 billion industry. So everything was looking really good for Pinterest. And so the valuation got stretched. And now that valuation has came back down to 31. I feel that this is an opportunity for long-term investors. I feel that Pinterest stock is an excellent stock to buy for 2023 and beyond. But keep in mind the headwinds will persist throughout 2023. But this is more of a long-term play here, aiming to capture Pinterest's growth to take a more meaningful share of the $800 billion and growing advertising industry. Okay, that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.